Okay. All right, so I'm going to be talking about Tableau today. And are you guys familiar with Tableau? A little bit.
Yes.
Okay. So Tableau is a data visualization application, and we have, I believe, four copies of it in the library. One of them is right in here in the co-lab, and you can reserve this room, as well as go and check out this keyboard, for instance. You could actually use the computer on here. And then we have 3 laptops that also have the software on it. You could just ask at the desk if you're interested in getting that. And there are a few versions of Tableau. There's Tableau Public, which lets you do almost everything you could do here for free. The issue with that is so to save anything, you have to make it available open online. So if you're working with anything that you don't want everyone in the world to know, such as anything HIPAA or FERPA related, don't use Tableau Public. There's also Tableau Student, which lets them use this version of Tableau for, I think it's a year at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any students that are interested in that, just tell them to Google Tableau Student, and they could just fill out the information for that. So, Tableau, let me open a new workbook here, or let me just go over here. So Tableau can connect to pretty much any type of data that you have. It connects to the usual things like Excel. Technically can do PDFs. I don't know how well that works because anything trying to read PDFs usually goes haywire. But statistical files, SAS, SPSS, etc. And you could also connect to a server, which is really nice. This includes things like any SQL servers, Amazon, and if you click more, a lot of things, including Google Analytics, Google Sheets, Oracle, and then any other database that's not on here. So basically, if there's any type of data that you think you can analyze, you can connect to it. And when you're connecting to the server, the best thing to do is to just make a snapshot of it at the time you connect to it. Then you can look at a certain subset of data. You can also just have it live, and then basically everything will automatically update. And if you're connecting to a file, same thing. It'll update when you add new information to it. So,
I'm sorry. Yes. Can it connect to any Oracle file that we have Oracle files, say Voyager?
Yeah,
be able to connect.
It's basically able to connect to.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's anything not on the list.
Just out of curiosity.
Yep, on the list of like other files here, you can't even see how many file types there are. But yeah.
Yeah, I just know it's in Oracle.
Yeah, then it definitely should because Oracle is one of the main ones listed right here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is actually go over how to find some health-related data sets. So Tableau is great for just like figuring out patterns in data. It's also really good for like making the visualizations, publishing them. You can make interactive visualizations or just images that you could use in, say, publications. But it's also really good for if you're interested in existing data, then you could just plug it in there, play around, and see what you might want to take a closer look at. So the site I'm going to here is called healthdata.gov, and this gathers a lot of freely available health data sets. And I'm going to search for a particular one that I've used before. But if you look at recently modified data sets, they have a lot of interesting stuff here. Food inspections, healthcare quality measures, pit stop locations. But I am going to search for cancer. All right, so I have 49 results here. And there's also going to be a lot of data sets that are not available on here. This is just free government data sets. So, 49 results. First thing I'm going to go is to publisher here. And I'm interested in, scroll down, National Institutes of Health. So let me select that. And then we're down to 3 results. There's also other things you can format it by, such as databases that are state specific. You could look at the tags here, or the format. Format doesn't matter too much because anything that's going to be on here, you're probably going to be able to read. And this says everything is HTML, but that's just how you actually get to it. So what I'm looking at here is the Health Information National Trends Survey. Excuse me. So if I click on this, it tells you who did it, the National Institutes of Health. Also has a license, which is really useful if you're going to be using this for your research. I think most government data that's published here is going to be just free and open to use. But to get the actual details before you start diving in, just click on the license, and that will tell you everything that's going on there. All right. So this tells you a summary of what this is. And what I'm going to be looking at is basically people's how they look at their own health, like their thoughts on how their health is. And to download this, you're going to want a couple links here. I think what we want to start with is the data dictionary. That's going to lead you to the actual survey instruments. And if you click on Hints Data, that will tell you how to actually download the data. So I'm going to use the one I already downloaded, which is Hints 5.1. And this is, I just downloaded a zip file. And the format here is a .sas7b dat file, which I had never heard of before, still really haven't, but you can just tell Tableau to open it and it works well. And the other thing we're interested in, so this is the actual data. It's reasonably sized. Yeah, basically the more data it is, Tableau can have some trouble working with extremely large data sets. So if you're interested in that, just talk to me, and you might have to use like coding or something to work with it. But we are also interested here in the public codebook. And that I have open here. It's extremely important because it tells you what all of these actual values mean. All right, so I'm going to go back to Tableau here, and I'm going to connect to a file. I'm just going to click More here because I don't know what this weird file name is. And then I'm just going to double click on the file. And it opens it. Great. So I'm going to just tell you kind of the basics of what Tableau can do. It has a lot of functionality in here. So what happens is that it shows you the connection, which is the file you've opened. If you're connecting to a database, it'll show that. And then if you want, you can add more connections and then actually combine them together. So a lot of the time, if you have some data and you want to add like external data, like one project I did was looking at all journal articles published in the past like 5 years that had a DOI. And what we did working with that is we wanted to look at what categories each of these journals, the journals they were published in were in. So what we did was we grabbed a data set looking at whether these articles were open access, and then we went to the Crossref who actually assigns the DOIs, and we added that put in the journal categorization for every journal we were looking at. So a lot of stuff you could do with that. And then here's what the data source actually looks like. All right, and I'm going to start by looking at gender. So there's a lot of fields in this particular form, so just gotta kind of find where gender is.
Would it let you do a search in that if it's got a lot of columns?
In here, no.
Okay.
This, you can actually go in the sheets and start analyzing it and search in there.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, I'm showing you this because there's useful stuff you could do before actually starting the analysis, which is nice. Okay, I think it's all right. Self-gender. So what you would actually do to start, if you're working with this data you've downloaded, go in the code book, Control F, gender, and find out what it actually is. So in this case, there are two different gender variables. Gender C, are you male or female? And self-gender, what is your gender? Which kind of highlights that a lot of data sets are going to have redundant variables and are not going to be neat and clean. In this case, it looks like the gender C was specifically for a cancer questionnaire. And then the self-gender goes with the rest of the demographic information. So in this case, I said it's pretty much the same numbers. I'm just going with self-gender. But when you're working with data, you'll probably just want to be able to justify which one you picked. It's something like this. All right, so self-gender. It looks like we have three values here, missing data, 1 and 2, and that tells you how many you have. All right, so I'm going to go back to Tableau here, and I'm going to look at self-gender. First thing I could see is that this is treating this as a decimal. I'm going to just click on the little number up there and change it to whole. Right, I'm going to do the same for age because it's sitting right there. All right, and you could basically go through and do this for everything, and it's going to start looking a lot cleaner. So, but for gender, this doesn't actually need to be a number because it's a category. So it's just going to be these three different categories. So what I'm going to do is change it to a string. All right, and now, when I click on this little down arrow, well, first I have the option to rename. So I'm just going to call this gender. And once again, if you're doing this, just make sure to always write down all the stuff you're doing to analyze it. All right, I'm going to change it to gender just to make my life a little easier. And I am going to click on aliases here. So now, the original number in the data can have a value or alias. So -9 I'm going to just call that missing data. 1 is going to be male, 2 female. And then let me go to the code book, double check that that is actually correct. 1 male, 2 female, good.
You just match it
Okay.
to the code book, unlike SPSS where you define the category. This you just define the category according to the code book.
Yes. Yeah, everything I'm doing, there's a lot of different ways to do that, but I like using the aliases because it just makes things like a lot easier to visualize, and then you don't have to do weird stuff trying to get like the graphs to show up what you're actually showing.
So if you're doing an SPSS, you could start with the code book if you're going to be mixing.
Yeah, I would always make sure that there's original data without the that's just saved with the numbers. But I'd say, yeah, I'd say as long as you just mark down everything that you're doing, as long as you're using a program that can change everything at once. Okay. All right, so I could go through and change absolutely everything in here to be neat and clean, but you could also fiddle with that later. So I'm going to start actually analyzing something. And let me go to sheet 1 here. And I am currently connected to 2 data sets because I was checking this out before. So I'm just going to close the first one. All right. I don't think that messed anything up. Okay, so you'll notice we have 2 types of data here, measures and dimensions. And basically, in general, measures are going to be continuous and they're going to be numbers. Dimensions in general are going to be discrete and they're going to be categorical. Now that I've said that, you can make anything you want into anything you want. So Tableau is going to try to guess what everything is. Sometimes it's really good at this, sometimes not so much. So, and especially when everything is data that's in numerical format, it's not always going to get everything. So let me scroll down to gender. And you can see it says a little ABC by it. It says the number, which is gender C. But since this is a category, let's make this a dimension. So if you click the little down arrow here, just click insert to convert to dimension. Now it's up there as a dimension. So I'm going to start by double clicking data. And actually, let me move this so you can actually see this. I'm going to get rid of this show me for a moment. I'll show you what it does in a minute. So Tableau tries to guess what you're trying to do whenever you do anything. So double click gender, and it just gives me the 3 different categories here, and that they're all strings, so no number attached to them. We want a number attached to that, however. We want to see how many of these there are. So I'm going to scroll all the way down on measures, and there is number of records. And number of records is an auto-generated field. It's going to show up with every data set, and that's just going to tell you how many are in each category. So let me double click that. And that decides that you're looking at this chart. So that means you want the number of records to be just text next to it. So it's 1784, 1254, missing data 247. And that's exactly what the codebook says, which is a really good sign. You'll also see that number of records is not just going to go as number of records. It's going to go as a sum. So just the sum of records, which right now is exactly what we're looking for. All right, now I'm going to go over here to show me. And this lets you choose what kind of visualization you want. And that's going to tell you, if you look below it, it tells you what exactly goes into them. So for example, if you wanted to make a map, you're probably going to want some form of geographical information in there. And I'll show you that later. Right now, let's have a nice simple pie chart. All right, so here's a pie chart. Let's get rid of show me. And over here on the right, then we have our not a table of contents. What's it called? Key. Thank you. It's too early, just by being 12:22. And then we have this over here also the sum of how many there are in total. All right, so that is our first visualization, very simple. And now if I want to actually, if I want to show what's going on here, I'm going to drag number of records and put it as a label. Again. All right, I'm going to try this the other way, which is a little difficult on this keyboard. If you click Control and then click and drag, it will take this over here without actually removing it from where it is. And this definitely worked just a few minutes ago. So I am not sure why this is not.
Is it already there?
No. What should happen is when you drag it to label, it should just show up as a label over here. Let me try this one more time. Well, that's never happened before. So yes, what should be happening when you drag something to label, it will just label it. Let's see if gender will work. I have no idea why this isn't working, but I'll explain what should be happening. When you drag number of records to label, it'll then show the numbers there. When you drag gender to label, it'll show the numbers and the gender. So it will show male, and then whatever that number is, female, missing data, etc. You could also drag that to tooltip, where it will only show up if you mouse over it, like the tooltip did right there. And if you have something interactive that you're publishing online, then tooltip keeps it nice and clean and still makes you able to see what's going on. All right, any questions so far?
Can a student do this for, say, a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
For like an interactive, the way you were saying publish?
I'm not positive, actually. I think, I believe you could. I've never put it directly on a PowerPoint. If worse comes to worse, honestly, you could just basically have the slide go to the website and then just show it from there. Yeah, if they're interested in doing that, send them to me and I'll figure it out.
Well, just because when I show my, what can be done.
Yes. All right, and another thing you could do, if it's interactive, when you click on anything over here in the key, it will highlight that. Right. Last thing you might want to know on this is let's drag gender again and hope it actually works this time. I'm going to drag that to filters. That's irritating. Okay.
It's raining.
It's raining. All right, clearly the rain has broken that. So, try saving this. Oh, this may be because of the different data sets. All right, let me close this data source. Let me close this and open it again.
This is good, because then when this happens to us, we'll go, it's always happening.
Desktop help. All right, so let's try this one more time. All right, I'm going to connect right to the data set here. Don't ask why there's 4 different shortcuts, one of which works. It's raining. All right, so I'm going to scroll way back over to gender again. Actually, I can edit the aliases in here. All right, so self-gender. All right, going to click here. I want to convert this to a dimension. I want to make this a string. And then I'm going to go to aliases. So exactly the same thing that I did, but it's once I've started working with the data. So, information, now, okay. All right, so self-gender, then we'll get number of records again. Show me, make it a chart. Okay, now, cross your fingers. All right, we want number of records. Let's put it as a label. I honestly have no idea why this is doing this.
Because I'm sitting here and this happens all the time.
All right, so what you should be able to do, let me go back to this and see if it works here. Of course not. All right, so what should be happening is that if you want to filter out something, say we don't want to see no information here, then you can just drag whatever you want to filter. So that's gender, so you would just drag it to filters here. Then what would pop up is checkboxes with the 3 different options: female, male, no information. So I just click female and male, click OK, and then it filters it, and then all you see is the gender that you want to see. You could also, if you're doing something interactive, you could set up a filter that that's open for somebody to click on it, so they can just focus on whatever they want to see. All right, so I don't know if this is going to work at this point, but I'm going to add something else on here. Excuse me. And I'm going to go back to the code book here. And I looked through all these, everything that this looked at. And I'm interested in something called general health. All right. So here you can see it just has the questions listed by section. And this is just, in general, how would you say your health is? So I'm just going to go right here. And it tells you what you have. And then you have the different missing data answers in here. And then you also have, you see that it goes, interestingly, from 1 good to 5 bad. All right, so I'm going to go back here. And I am going to double click general health. Okay, good. That's actually working. However, you might notice that the female general health is giving 4,598, which is not actually on a scale of 1 to 5. If you look over here at measure values, it's giving the sum. So click there. And then where it says measure sum, you have a whole bunch of different options. what we want is just, all right. So now that is giving it as a whole number, which is interesting. Let me get this. There we go. All right, so basically because it was a smaller table in there, it just averaged it. It just rounded it up. But here we have the exact responses here. So looks like women are feel they're in slightly worse health than men. And then no information, we have better than both of them. So I guess if you can't fill this out correctly, then be happy. All right, now let's look at a bar chart. All right, click at a bar chart here. And right now, I think this would look better on its side. So if you go over here to this little button, it says swap rows and columns. It swaps rows and columns. Now, are you going to let me really filter this? Of course not, and we don't know why. It's on caps lock. Okay, so what I wanted to do is just get rid of the no information here, so we're just looking at female and male. The other thing I wanted to do was just drag gender to color, and what that would do would set female as one color and male as another. Then, if you click on color, you could choose which color you want for both for each one. So right now, since it's acting up, it lets you choose one color, which is pretty obvious. If there's two or more, it'll let you choose just which color for each category you want. All right, any questions about this? Well, this is the very basics of the kind of stuff you could do with Tableau. You can just basically, you could double click data and get Tableau to guess what you want to see. Then usually you edit it to make it actually what you want to see. And there's a lot you could do with filtering out things and looking at more complicated data. You could do predictive stuff. So this is just the very basics working from a not cleaned up data set. But once you have the data and you know exactly what you want to look at, there's a lot that you could do. All right, so I'm going to open another workbook to show you some of the more complicated stuff. All right, let me actually go over here. And I'm going to connect to a sample workbook, which is Superstore. So this is a business example here, and their data is so much nicer and cleaner than anything you get will ever be. But let's take a look at what's going on if it decides to open. Which it may not, because Tableau doesn't seem to want to work right now. All right. Let me close this and just try opening it again. All right, let's try this again. Sample Superstore. There we go. Okay, I don't know if it'll actually let me drag anything, but here it is. Actually, how long I want? All right. Well, this doesn't have this isn't the sample workbook, but I'll open that later. All right. So Superstore. I'm going to look at this is just sample data for a big Walmart, whatever. I'm going to look at profit by region. So I'm going to double click region here. And if I actually want to look at the data source, you can see what the data looks like. And you'll see we have region. We also have country, city, state, postal code. And up here, this is under a geographic role, which is pretty interesting. So when you have data, data such as postal code, state, country, Tableau is going to take that and turn it into latitude and longitude. So it's going to be able to do a lot of complicated stuff with that. So let me look by region, and then I'm going to go down here to just profit. All right, so that's just easy chart here. Sum is profit. But if you go to show me, all right, let me take out region. Okay, we take out region here. What I want instead is location. I'm going to use state instead. What I want is this. So you'll see that over here we have country and state, and that went to something called detail. Because what's actually being used up here to generate it is the longitude and latitude. And yeah, when they made the database, they didn't enter the longitude and latitude, they just entered the state. And here you could see the sum profits. And you can see it goes from bad profit, like us, we're losing money here, to the good profit over there in New York, California, selling a lot. And then you could actually drill down here. Say we want city. Just throw that in here. And then a little harder to see, but you could actually see specific cities. All right, so let me get rid of that. I'll look at here. All right, now what I want to do is I'm going to open a new chart here, and I want to look at the profit by category. So over here, you'll notice under the dimensions, they have a product. And then they have four different options here. So let me just click on category here. And it looks like we have three different categories: furniture, office supplies, technology. Now let me double click profit in here. And it shows a nice boring chart here. Maybe slightly less boring bar chart. I'm going to switch it. There we go. So it looks like most profit here with the sum is in technology. Let's look by average instead. Even more so technology. Now, so here we had category and subcategory. These are actually a tree, as Tableau reads them. So, category has a little plus sign by it. Click on category, and it expands out to subcategory. The way you'll probably see this most is looking at dates. It'll show by year, and then I'll have a little plus. Click that, and it'll go to by month, by day. And then over in technology, we can see copiers have the highest average profit by a lot. So I'm going to click on technology here. And I am going to right click it and then do keep only. All right, so even if it decides it doesn't want to actually drag, it has the only category in here is subcategory technology copiers. So what I'm going to do now is get everything else off here. And I'm going to go back to product. No, I actually want to go back to location. Let's do state in here. All right. And then we want sales. Is that what I want? Let me look at what I actually looked at. All right. Yes, I wanted sales by region. We want the sum of sales. And let's make this a non-symbol map. I like the color map in here. So now we see how our sales of copiers are looking. Again, California and New York. But you can see, considering the price of copiers, the sales might not be that big. So I'm going to grab number of records and move that to a label, which of course is not working. But what that would do is just pop up how many records or how many sales with this filter do we have in each of these regions. So California was something like 18 copiers sold, and then the low ones over here had like 1 or 2. But then looking at that, you could see something like, where is your big stuff selling? Or, for instance, what state has the highest, is having the most average deaths from measles per year. So that's just some of the more complicated stuff you could do. Tableau is really nice for working with the anything that has a sub that kind of nests in a tree that you could expand out. You do have to, unless it's stuff like location and time will automatically do that. But if you have something here like the categories, then you would have to just specifically go through and tell Tableau, like DO students are our entire student body is separated into DO students, psych students, etc. And then you would just be able to treat it as a subset of a larger number.
What about the ones that you've had the good all the way down to the poor? Can you make a tree out of that?
Yes.
Okay. So then you can see how many poors versus how many goods.
Yeah. You could you could even do it as make it into a dimension if you'd rather see it as a chart, like as a bar chart, just see. And then you could set the colors to do a heat map to say, okay, we want poor to be in red, good to be in green, and then you could kind of see how it goes.
Where do you find heat maps on there specifically?
So that is, you would have to set it in the colors.
So I have the one analysis thing that does it for me, but I sometimes have to do one myself. So it would be much more helpful if I could figure it out here.
So you could set it as an actual palette here. And they have a lot of, easiest way is there's a bunch that you could pick from, but something like orange to blue is usually a good one. You could also set it to stepped color, which makes it clearer to look at. Reverse, or use full color range, which means that nothing's going to be the exact same color. And that you could just click on color and then edit colors, do all that. Right, now let me try to open the actual workbook. Okay, yes, that's save data sources. All right, and let's go down here, sample workbooks, and hope this is the right one. So the sample workbooks is working with the Superstore data and just showing how much you could actually do with Tableau. So this is what it'll look like on a actual on a workbook, or, a dashboard. So every graph that you want, you're gonna make a workbook out of it. But once you have multiple workbooks, you can put together all of them onto a dashboard. And this one, again, is not actually showing everything it needs to because it's raining and Tableau doesn't feel like working properly. But so this dashboard here is just three different workbooks stuck together. And what's really cool is that once you stick workbooks together, you can have the same keys applying to all of them, which, if they're interactive, means that people could look at anything they want. So right now, this is looking at all regions. I'm going to look at the East. And every single workbook on here changes. Because these are not just like simple images it's all looking at the original data. So it knows that all of these are going to be connected. All of these are referring to the same thing when they have the same variables in there. And if you double click, or you see how you do this, if you click on one of these sheets, you could just click go to sheet, and then it takes you to what the actual worksheet looks like. This is also a good way to get an overview of what you can do with Tableau. If you want to do some fancy things, just look at their like the Superstore existing workbook and see what they can do. You could also click use this as a filter. What that means, click on the orange in here, and then that's going to change everything else to look at the same thing, which is technology, I believe. Or let's look at just Pennsylvania. And then we have everything only in Pennsylvania. And then this is just an example of what a lot of other options are going to look at. You could change it to look at individual records. So basically everything is going to be automatically it's going to be aggregate measures. So for example, if you want to look at the average of everything, if you want to be looking at specific dots one by one, you just unclick aggregate measures, and then you could do things like this. Then there's a lot of different data in here. And here we have an example of a forecast. So we have the actual and the estimate here. And then weather forecast, which is the same type of thing, but just in chart form. All right. Any questions besides why is Tableau not letting you drag anything? Because I don't know.
How would you export or capture those images for use in other things like Word, PDFs?
So let me actually remember how to do this. All right, let me region all. Let me go to a specific chart. If I can unselect. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go to the chart here. Thanks, Tableau.
It's usually what I get anytime I do anything.
All right. So I actually forgot to look this up beforehand, but you can, you can export it exactly as a PowerPoint. Let's see, save as. think there'll either be an option to save as All right, so I think what you want to do, you can copy it and then just copy it as an image. So just right click, copy image, and then it tells you exactly what you want to copy. So this will also include the key, caption and legends. You could choose where it is, or you could not have that. Or title, caption, anything. Yep, so you have plenty of options, and then you could just paste it in Photoshop or Paint even, and then just save that as whatever file type you want this.
I know when I had a student who was working in Tableau, we couldn't get it put in certain spots. It would lose data.
Huh. That I'm not sure why. I think if worst comes to worst when trying to save an image, you could just do print screen.
That's my go-to. I just thought maybe there was something that I was missing.
Yeah, it should. Because saving it as an image, once you do the copy as an image, that shouldn't be connected to the data anymore. So.
Yeah, because if you do a screen capture of that, say your consumer, you've got it's chunky.
Right.
That's the only problem with this, the screen capture one.
Yeah. Yeah, so in that case, your first bet would be copy as image. If that doesn't work, then start trying to do workarounds. All right. Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now I get to play.
All right. Yes, and if anything breaks, like it helpfully did for me here, then you all can definitely come for me to help figure it out. And yeah, I will go digging into the help. And usually, whenever something happens, someone else has had the same issue. So I would just Google Tableau, whatever version you're on. Say dragging does not work. Usually, you're going to find someone asking the same question.
Yeah. So if you're using Windows 10. All pieces of equipment.
I swear this all worked upstairs. Like 5 minutes ago, I tested it.
Same thing with my